awarded to Italy after World War I, and this is not as crazy as you might think. Remember, the plan was to divide up the Ottomans like this. By the year 1920, the Italians were supposed to have all this region. They even got a little extra closer to their peninsula, though in our timeline, they got some of that stuff. That still wasn't exactly what they expected. They wanted a bit more that they just didn't get in reality. But this is a scenario that I think they'd be pretty much happy with. We also have to assume they would still have control over Libya, Ethiopia, and parts around the Horn of Africa. So Mussolini man would be closer than ever to actually establishing a neo-Roman empire during World War II. I guess it would all depend on if he could actually beat Greece without Germany's help though. Finally, useful ally Italy, the Indochinese wasteland, or if America really did bomb them into the Stone Age. Basically, this is a reference to the Vietnam War. In this scenario, they ended up sending more boom booms than actual people, basically. So it's about 20 years after the fact. We still have remnants of the former countries like Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, but some places are doing a lot better than others. Most of Vietnam is completely just rubble at this point. China, I guess, had to step in with a zone of friendship. Laos has literally been sent back to the medieval times. For some reason, the office of the vice president has a much bigger territory. Is this the vice US president? Does he just have his own country now? I guess that's how we make that role actually useful. Average life expectancy in this part of the world, we have 12 years old. There's also anywhere between 75 to 100 million landmines. I think this is 75 million to 100 million, or maybe there's only 75. That doesn't seem that bad. Remember that to this day, this has nothing to do with alternative history. This is actually reality. The country of Laos has this many landmines. It's still an extremely serious issue for them, even in 2023. So in this alternative universe, it would just be completely unbearable. Bombs drop 200 billion? I don't think I can even wrap my head around that. Needless to say, this is a very depressing world right here. Meanwhile, cut to every German's dream, or this new German empire in the year 1940. Do they pretty much have every German-speaking region? Almost every German-speaking region. I mean, clearly they have a very thick Austria under their belt. Official language, German. You don't say. Population over 100 million in 1940. This is clearly a scenario where Germany won World War I. Reference, in our timeline, Germany started World War II before World War II with about 80 million population. I mean, I guess in a way they did kind of recreate this for a few years there during our reality, just not in the best way. What if Serbia started a special military operation in Kosovo? We're obviously making a reference to Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. Now, similarly, Kosovo would be surrounded on 3 sides. Remember when this whole thing first started, things were kind of looking like this. Obviously, a lot has changed now, though. And obviously, Kosovo is having trouble against the Serbs, as you can see. Oh, look, we even have a live image of what it looks like. Look at those glorious Serbian helicopters, I guess. I think those are helicopters. It's more like 16 pixels. I have a feeling a lot of countries would actually step in, though. Man, those pictures were so real. Extremely lifelike. It's like they came from the future. The nation of Japan, 10 years after the Great Asian War, or in other words, the Sino-American War. Here is the state of Japan in the year 2042. So many anti-government riots happening around the islands. There's also an area affected by natural disasters. Obviously, this is taking place in the future 20 years from now, so they have even worse demographic issues. For reference, Japan's supposed to go from 125 million currently down to 106 million in 2 decades. There's also a government run by fools, apparently is what this says. Hey, this guy tried hard to get people to have kids. He literally pulled out all the stops. It looks like Japan has basically become a puppet state to the US. The true 51st state, America's bigger Hawaii, and also bigger Guam. There's also a gender revolution. I believe each one of those were their own individual Japans and possibilities. This one is more of just like a crazy, more hyper, more like the Imperial Japan that we knew from WW2. I don't know, something like that. I feel like I have even more questions about this. The medieval ages, but things look a bit different. It's clearly 1444, or the start of Europa Universalis 4, if you've played that game before. So this is actually what we looked like at that time. We had England with the 100 Years' War against France. Castile and Aragon hadn't formed Spain yet. Obviously a very divided Italy after the Romans fell. Holy Roman Empire here, thick Lithuania. There was no Russia just yet. The rise of the Ottomans. Okay, I think we covered pretty much everything that happened historically. But in this alternative alternative timeline, we have a very strong Celtic Union. Already think that's pretty fun. And this Celtic Union still has Brittany, this French peninsula. It's actually England that's still divided into a lot of kingdoms. Clearly, the Reconquista to push the Muslims out of the Iberian Peninsula has not been as successful. In fact, it doesn't really even look like Portugal, Navarra, and I think this is Aragon is gonna have enough to be able to get them out. Italy's still divided though. There's still kind of a Germanic Federation, or basically an HRE. Poland is a lot closer to their modern day 2023 borders. There are no Ottomans, but there is this kingdom. Wait, is this a Christian Ottomans? And yeah, we have this, which are they hordes? There was still a lot of hordic nomads running around the steppes, causing all sorts of trouble. Definitely an interesting scenario just from Western Europe alone. Oh, also, they're still in Assyria. What the? I actually would be very curious to find out how colonization in this world plays out. What if the nation of Germany was punished a whole lot harder for World War II? And we've seen many scenarios like this for them being punished harder for World War I, which in a lot of cases pretty much completely avoids a World War II. But again, this is a world where Germany is punished after World War II and even harder. So there is no just West and East Germany. There are several more. There's also the Republic of Bavaria, the Rhinish Republic, as well as the PRL, basically. These two are the two Marxist governments. So clearly even the Soviet Union punished Germany harder than they did in our timeline. There's the Federal Republic of Germany, or basically West Germany as we know it. Things are still the same there. They're still a part of NATO, as well as the Rhinish Republic. The Kiel Canal Zone. I didn't even see that. It's basically like the Gambia. You know the country, the Gambia in Africa? It's a long, snaky river boy. Anyways, Bavaria and this canal, they're both neutral. They're not a part of NATO or the Warsaw Pact. I wonder how much harder this would make it for Germany to reunify after the Cold War ends. I mean, instead of just dealing with the West and the East, you now have all these other players that have to get involved. And Bavaria's been wanting to be their own place for a while, so maybe they won't even join. Now we need what if Japan was punished more harshly after WW2, and throw in Italy as well. I mean, did anything even really happen to them? What if Napoleon had a really strong navy? He pretty much did already have a really strong army, although they did have weaknesses in the cold. So we pretty much have a historical French empire during Napoleon's time in continental Europe. I mean, in our own history, this is where they reached their greatest extent in 1812. They had all of this. In this scenario, they have a little bit more though, with the inclusion of Portugal and Iberia, as well as a couple places in the Balkans. I can't really tell what's going on in Scandinavia. Maybe they have all of that. What's interesting is they do not have the UK, so they do have a stronger navy, but they clearly do not have the strongest, because the UK would no longer be here, basically. With this strong navy, that means they were able to jump across the Mediterranean. They have a huge stranglehold over the Arabian Peninsula. I see even in alternative history, Europeans have to draw straight lines over, honestly, places that really shouldn't have straight lines. And it looks like Napoleon is even stealing away a big chunk of what would be British Raj. So the UK is still here with Company Raj, but they do not have, obviously, a monopoly over all of the South Asia continent. What I find interesting about this, though, is yes, he does have more territory around the world, but this doesn't help him at all against Russia. In fact, he might still lose several wars against Russia because your navy's not really going to help here. Couldn't tell. Navy's not really going to do much against Russia. I really wish this expanded to show what was going on in America. Remember, France ended up invading Mexico. They would definitely keep Mexico in this Napoleon timeline if he's like basically on steroids. This was way after Napoleon's time though, when they actually did do this with Mexico. I'm just saying. He would pretty much become world emperor at this point. He's just too OP. The United States of America, if the US just didn't stop. Unlimited manifest destiny. Obviously, historically, the US started with the 13 colonies, and they did the Louisiana Purchase, the Florida Purchase, and then manifest destiny was them just kind of going straight across to the Pacific Ocean, leading up California, Oregon, and Washington. In this scenario, though, manifest destiny expanded not only westward, but south and north as well. This was already an idea the US had, specifically the South during the Civil War. This was known as the Golden Circle Map, or what the South would have done if they actually did gain their independence. They would have at least tried to do this. I don't know if they'd be successful. Which, side note, but there would be a whole lot of Spanish speakers here, and probably way more population here too. I mean, I don't even know what the South would look like after 100 years of this territory. They would be such a weird nation. They definitely wouldn't be what they started off as. Anyways, this is more than just the South that has this. It's all of the US. Then the US apparently didn't appreciate the Canadians up here, so they took over all of that, which maybe with a dominant victory in the War of 1812, it was possible. Took away Greenland, slap Iceland on there for good measure. We obviously have Alaska. So we did a purchase, but we might have purchased even more. Maybe Russia. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like hypothetical situations. Then after we got these Russian lands, it'd be a lot easier for us to just maybe conquer Japan and the Koreas. I like how for some reason we divided the peninsula into North, South, and West Korea. Look at all these crazy US states that have popped up. We also did control the Philippines for a time, so that also isn't that crazy. Still got Guam, Taiwan's a friend. I mean, out of all the completely unrealistic alternative history maps we see here, this is not like a 10 out of 10 super insane. This is like a 5. Like, this is reasonable. But with that population of 1 billion and all the different cultures and languages, it would be a little bit difficult to keep ourselves united, I think. I mean, we're already kind of having trouble with just the 50 states kind of staying united sometimes. In this situation, it would be 10 times harder. But man, just look at all those new stars. This is like 100? Manifest Destiny on steroids. The world, if every person got their own country. I want my own country. Let's see exactly if I could figure out where I would live. Okay, the dots, they just keep getting smaller. Oh, that's actually a really nice size. Like even just this black one. Wait, why are some countries way bigger than others? So in this scenario, every person would have a country the size of 16,000 square meters. That's like, what, at least a square mile? That's plenty of space for my own little country. The problem with this scenario is you probably won't be able to choose where you get your country. So it's gonna be like millions banished to like the Siberian tundra, which wouldn't be a very fun place to live if you didn't know. That, or you'd have to live somewhere in the Sahara Desert, maybe the Amazon rainforest even. The problem is you have a really high likelihood to have an area that you wouldn't really desire. The vast majority of people definitely won't be able to farm in whatever country they got. I'm just thinking about all the fun alliances I would do. I'd probably run my country like a medieval kingdom. Ask my neighbor if he wants to siege my other neighbor. We'd have exactly 2 manpower. And big thanks to the patrons.
Drew, I'm your dad, back with the milk. Look outside.
JohnDenver, LuxembourgLover. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. Aaron, Amateur Archaeology,
Carmel,
Fredrik Tibblin,
GoodOldRyah,
KirinoIsBestGirl,
annoying friend,
KirinoIsBestGirl,
Robert,
RyeThePie,
Sebby, if you hear this, I love you.
And why am I doing this?